Welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast, where your host, Josh Sweeney, will give you, the business leaders, HR professionals, and company culture aficionados, the knowledge you need to take your company culture to the next level.
Hello, my name is Josh Sweeney, and welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast. Before we get started, I would like to thank Prototype Prime. Prototype Prime is a technology co-working space in Peachtree Corners, Georgia, and they have an amazing podcast room that we were able to utilize for this content today. So thank you. In earlier episodes, we went over company culture interview questions. So these are questions that we ask during the interview process to assess whether this person that is applying matches our company culture. For today's question, I'm going to dive into one that we specifically use in Epic Culture and that I've used in the past. So this question is very simple. What is your favorite hobby? Now, on the surface, that seems like a pretty straightforward question. Why would we ask what somebody's favorite hobby is? Well, lots of different reasons. The first thing is we want to see, is this person engaged in something on a regular basis? So an example would be, my favorite hobby is playing softball, right? You have somebody that plays co-ed softball on a recurring basis, and they're active and they're moving and they're engaged, right? So to us, what this question really starts to exhibit is there something that this person has taken on as a hobby and that is consistent at? So if they're going to work in our environment and they have a certain role, are they theoretically going to be consistent in that role? Now, let's talk about the difference between good answers and bad answers on the favorite hobby. So the first, we're going to start with an answer that is definitely not my favorite, but seems to be more and more common. One answer I get very commonly is, my favorite hobby is playing video games. And this is going to be similar to, my favorite hobby is watching Netflix or watching TV. Now, on the surface, not a bad answer, right? We've all done our share of video games, binge watched some season of Billions, maybe 3 times. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we've all done it before. Now, to take it to the level of it being your hobby and doing it on a recurring basis is pretty strong though. What that conveys to us is that you are in general a consumer, right? You get home and maybe there's a certain sedentary lifestyle. You're a consumer of content, and there's just certain aligned actions with people who follow that versus what we would consider a good answer, like I play co-ed softball and I play in tournaments. Or another common one would be I'm on a tennis team and play tournaments every weekend. The difference is the tennis or the sports have a couple of different indicators around this person's personality as an employee and as a person. What that tells us is, one, is if this is a sales role, this is a huge indicator of success of whether they played competitive sports throughout school and continue to, because competition is a big part of the sales mentality and that competitive nature. But it also shows that they are able to take on a hobby and excel at it to a certain level. And if you can excel at a certain level, then you've had to stay with it for a consistently long time. You've probably been through the roller coaster of the ups and downs. And it really shows that not only can you stick to something, you can stick it out, but you can do it at an extremely high level of competency. And we generally see that that is going to reflect in the job that person's going to do for us. So all of those are great indicators. Now you may say, does that work or not? Again, this is one of the 4 to 5 questions we generally ask. We're not knocking people out because of this specific example, but it is yet another piece of information that we use for comparison. Now, everybody's going to throw in, but Josh, what about the gaming, right? I'm really good at gaming, and we got a lot of gamers out there. I do my share of gaming, have done my share of gaming, so no hater here. But what we will see is that there is a difference between gaming and going home and sitting and picking up a controller, eating a bag of Doritos and playing some Fortnite versus, I play a very specific game and go to, the Red Bull competitions, right? There is a competitive level. You've stuck with it long enough to show a trend. And that could be the same for any hobby. I mentioned, more lifestyle active hobbies. That would be our preferred answer, what I would say is the best answer for a lot of indicators. However, it could be pretty much any hobby, sitting, standing, walking, or whatever else is involved in that hobby. We just want to know that you've proven that you are really good at something that you can stick to for a long period of time. So when you're coming up with your culture questions, we implore you to dig down into the deeper meaning of these questions and how they translate to you, and to also ensure that they reflect you as an organization. Let's make sure that you're not asking questions that don't reflect you as an organization. Get down to the heart of who you are. So, as a recap, dig into those questions, come up with amazing company culture questions to find the right fit for your organization.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Epic Company Culture Podcast with Josh Sweeney. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. For additional content and transcripts, visit epicculture.co. If you have questions or topics you would like us to address or expand on, tweet us at epicculture1 or email at podcast@epicculture.co.